What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. We're live breaking down game number 77 of the Toronto Maple Leafs season, defeating the Columbus Blue Jackets here tonight 4-2, going to 46, 21, and 10 on the regular season. Obviously, a playoff spot is locked up, but we start to get some of these players that are injured coming back into the lineup, starting to look a little bit more like what we might see come opening night of the Stanley Cup playoffs for this season. Already looking at Achari coming back here. Obviously, they said to Ryan O'Reilly, if you are not 110% ready to go, don't worry about playing tonight. It is a Tuesday home game with Joseph Woll in net against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Don't worry about it. We'll see you on Thursday if you're ready to go then, and you can hop back into this lineup then. So we start to see some of these guys hop back into the lineup. We're starting to see what hopefully will be closer to opening night lineup. I do like what I saw from Joseph Woll here tonight. And look, this guy, he's obviously auditioned throughout the course of the regular season when he gets some games up here. Him playing with the Marlies this season, having an incredible goal, going to the All-Star game, being the best goalie at the All-Star game. Those are amazing things for him. He gets the contract with the Leafs. He's likely going to be the guy to hop up here next year, but with Matt Murray going down with another injury here, having the amount of injuries that he had so far this season, the up and down season that we experienced from him, Joseph Woll is sitting here in a position where he could be the backup goaltender come game one against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, will Matt Murray be able to come back, maybe jump over him as the backup if Samsonov stays healthy? Maybe. That will be the case, but as it stands right now, we're looking at having to have Joseph Woll be the guy, and he has to go out there each and every night that he gets an opportunity to take this net and prove that he is a trustworthy, reliable goaltender who can be used in these situations if Samsonov is having a bad game, if he is sick, if he is injured, if Sheldon Keefe feels like he needs to send a message to the rest of the team, wake up, I'm going to put the backup in there. Joseph Woll is proving that he is a more than suitable goaltender. I mean, it's not like his stats from tonight's game are going to blow you away by any stretch of the imagination, but he does make 24 saves, has a .923 save percentage, a good night from him, and in a night where you could sit there and look at Jet Greaves down the other end, making his NHL debut for the Columbus Blue Jackets, putting up an incredible night for himself. It's not that uncommon for this Leafs team to walk away from a game like this, and us fans sit here in these post-game streams and say, we got goalied again. Well, guess what? With Joseph Woll back there, the way that he played, he never really let us get to that uncomfortable feeling. I never looked back there and started getting concerned about the shot quality that Columbus was getting for what Joseph Woll was having to face, the opportunities, and then anytime Columbus got a decent opportunity, I felt pretty comfortable with Joseph Woll's ability to make a save at a timely moment in the game, whether it was late in the third period there or some of the opportunities Columbus was able to create when we were looking at a tighter game, a tighter situation earlier on, where you were sitting there thinking, hey, if Columbus gets one to tie this or they get one to take the lead, we could be in trouble here, as Leafs fans always know, playing against these lower-end teams with a goalie who all of a sudden has an incredible night. You're going to sit there and say, oh my God, we could blow this one. Well, Joseph Woll did not let that get out of hand. And truthfully, I think this is one of those nights that you kind of sit there and say, yeah, it was 4-2. That's the final score. And I see here in the chat, Kelly saying, should have been a blowout. I would agree that it should have been, but it's not like this is one of those ones that you walk away from saying, this should have been a blowout, and they didn't play well enough. Look, the Leafs deserve to win a meter on a night like tonight, 93% in the expected goals battle here, 6.73 to 2 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This was analytically one where the Leafs dominated, and the Columbus Blue Jackets got a ton of help from Jet Greaves, who puts up 46 saves and a .939 save percentage, only allowing 3 goals tonight to Toronto in his debut. What a night for Jet Greaves there to put on a clinic, make some incredible saves, and even looking here at like the heat map of what happened for tonight with this game between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'll see if I can pull it up on the screen here, but I mean, the honest truth is that the Leafs dominated this game. They just didn't have the scoring. Look at these expected chances from the Leafs. These are not peripheral shots. This is not a perimeter game for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. This is a close, tight, high high scoring chance game that the Leafs had here tonight against the Blue Jackets, and Jet Greaves, honestly, credit to him because he did play an incredible game tonight. So just looking at that alone, you can kind of see there the chances that they created, how close they were. This was not a perimeter type night for the Leafs where they kind of stay on the outside and, oh yeah, you got 49 shots tonight, but how good were they? No. Looking at the expected goal situation, the deserve to win a meter on tonight's game as it even climbs up there, and how these chances were generated, where they were generated from. I still think this was a very, very, very good night for the Maple Leafs. You just kind of walk away from this one without having scored a lot more goals than realistically they probably should have, but nonetheless, I'm okay with this performance from the Leafs tonight. I still feel pretty comfortable in what they did, and the fact that they were able to grit out a win here tonight, walk away with one in this performance, because this is traditionally one where you walk away and say, well, the Leafs leafed, and they lose this one tonight to Columbus. So frustrating. Devin Sr. also bringing up here, I mean, to go 6 points up on Tampa, not a good team on Columbus. The Leafs should win this game, and they did. Agreed, this should win this game, but a lot of times you get into games where you sit here with this Leafs team and you say they should. Well, they don't, and they did tonight. So thankfully they did that, because I couldn't even imagine the type of response that we would have got tomorrow morning and tonight in this chat had the Leafs not pulled out this win. If you guys are watching right now and you have not hit that subscribe button, please make sure to do so. We're still trying to get to 5,000. I know it is a lofty goal at this point in time, but if you're watching and you haven't hit subscribe, please make sure to do so. Just take 1 second and hit that subscribe button here on this channel. Help us get closer to 5K. Hit that like button as well. As you guys remember, every 50 likes, bring out the salts. That's what happens. You bring out the salts here on stream. We'll bring in a special guest here, come back for the playoff time. Maybe we'll get him some salts as well. I will load up on some new salts come playoff time, so that the first time I crack it is fresh on stream. You guys can watch me absolutely suffer to a brand new bottle of smelling salts, but every 50 likes, bring up the salts. So don't forget about that as well. And I would put a salt emoji in the chat, but I don't need to, because there already is a salt shaker emoji. So there's no need to add one in there myself, but yeah. All right, let's talk about some of the performances from some of the guys on this Leafs team that we saw here tonight. And as we get into that, we will be taking calls here tonight. So if anybody wants to call in, give their opinions on players, what they saw from guys in this lineup, what they saw from the way the lineup was built out, what they saw from the power play, the goaltending, whatever it is. If you guys have your own opinions on tonight's game, please make sure to join the Leafs Digest Discord. I will send the link in the chat right now. If you do want to join the Leafs Digest Discord, you can click on that link, join in there. You can send me a private message, and I will send you a message to have you call in. So I will give you a link to call in here tonight. If you do have opinions on tonight's game, would be happy to hear what people think, how they feel about this one. So if you do want to call in, do that. We will break down the players, what we saw from guys, and a friendly reminder. If you are in the business for a new or used car, the best place to go is the Queensway Automotive Group. As you can see with the link in the description of this video, if you click on that link, it will take you to the Maple Leafs specific landing page as well, pinned to the top of the chat, as I just sent the link into the chat. There is the Queensway Automotive Group link to take you to the Maple Leafs Digest page. You can send them messages on there. You got a need for a new car, a used car. Maybe you're looking to trade in your car. You have a car that has damages, it needs repairs, it needs something fixed. Or you just have questions because you're not looking right now, but you'll be looking in the summer, you'll be looking in September, whatever it is. The Queensway Automotive Group is the group to help you out with all of that. We trust those guys over there. We had conversations with them, so we were able to at least come to a conclusion that this was a good partnership for us, and if it's a good partnership for us, then it is a good group for you guys to go to and work with. So make sure to check out the Queensway Automotive Group. The link pinned to the top of the chat as well is in the description there. So make sure to check them out for all your new and used car needs. As far as 6 1/3 here saying, Zach, they have the small Bronco. I I don't know. I haven't even taken a look at myself. Right now, I'm not in the need for a new car, but when I am, Queensway Automotive Group will be the group that I hit up 100%. Let's talk about a small Bronco here tonight, and that would be the man himself, number 12 on the Toronto Maple Leafs, Zach Aston Reese. Zach Aston Reese has himself a night. Another 2-goal performance from him. You're looking at 10 goals on the season, setting a career high for goals in a single season. Zach Aston Reese, what a monster. He said to the guys before the show tonight, or before the game tonight, hey, I want to get double digits on the season. And what do you know? He gets himself into good spots in front of the net and basically sitting here telling Sheldon Keefe, I deserve to be in this lineup and you are making a mistake if you don't put me in. We talk about depth players who could make an impact come playoff time. Depth players who could be in a position to score a big goal, cause problems in the lower level of the lineup. How are they going to match up third lines, fourth lines against these guys? Zach Aston Reese, as it stands right this second, is showing to Sheldon Keefe and this Maple Leafs management that he's a guy who can cause problems in the lower level of the lineup. Zach Aston Reese has been a monster over about the last 15 to 20 games, ever since Sheldon Keefe sat him out of the lineup and basically said he wasn't going to be good enough to get in here. He wasn't going to be good enough to make an impact in this lineup. Put him out in the press box. ZAR, I keep saying his name. I feel like it's easy to say his name. Aston Reese has truly been a bit of a monster out there, getting down low, winning low battles, getting himself into good spots in front of the net. Both goals that he scored, very different ways, were from spots in around the similar situation, just on opposite sides of the net. Look at the first goal there. Lafferty finds Zach Aston Reese at the side of the net, and he buries a nice shot where he doesn't take too much time, rips it short side over the past the goaltender's arms, in tight there, but he is in a tight spot to the net, in a good spot to be able to create some offense, to be able to generate anything, to be able to get that shot off. He was in a good position, separating himself, finding open space, finding open ice. That is all you could ask for from guys on your fourth line, and truthfully, that was generated from a great shift by the fourth line. I mean, you look at them getting down low, winning a cycle battle, being able to hold zone time, Hall rushing down in there, getting the puck down low. Lafferty finding Zach Aston Reese at the side of the net. I mean, great goal from him. And then the later goal as well, driven by a hustle play for the Maple Leafs here tonight. Look at it starts with David Kampf chasing down the puck, winning a battle, and having a near scoring opportunity as he drives the net one-handed, gets kind of fended off and shovels it towards the net with one hand. It just goes wide of the net there. These guys recover the puck, cycle for an extended period of time, wear down the Columbus defenders, get the puck back to the point. McCabe steps in and rips a shot from the point. Thank you, defenseman, for shooting the puck. And as Zach Aston Reese fights off two guys in front of the net, it finds a way to hit the inside of his leg and deflect into the net. So it's just hustle plays, right? Like, that's what you're looking for from the bottom of your lineup. You're looking for guys to battle. You're looking for guys to engage in the play, get in the mix, and get in front of the net. If you are on the fourth line, nobody is expecting you to take over a shift like Austin Matthews. But what you can do is play like David Kampf, Zach Aston Reese, Wayne Simmons occasionally when he gets in the lineup, Noel Achari. Those are key lower end players to fit into your bottom six who can go out there and dominate physically by taking over with their size and their strength. They're not going to blow you away with speed, but what they're going to do is they're going to push on you. They're going to win the battles. They're going to get in tight, and they are going to cycle the puck well around you. So that was a great shift for the second goal by Aston Reese, and ultimately ends up being the game winner for the game tonight. Carrick saying Austin Reese interview after game, he's so sweet. Did not see the post-game interview, but yeah, if anybody out there wants to call in, talk about the post-game interview, anything they saw or heard here tonight from Sheldon Keefe for the guys on the team after the game, more than welcome to as well. If you have your own thoughts on tonight's game, we're happy to hear about that. But let's talk a little bit about Noel Achari and his return. Look, I know this is one game. I know that this isn't the most meaningful situation for him to be in a game against Columbus on a Tuesday night. But look, from what we saw of Noel Achari before he got injured and then after he came back here, the way that this guy plays, is perfect for the playoffs. He is establishing himself as a guy that can be trusted, whether it be defensively or a guy who can make an impact offensively by getting in the zone, protecting the puck, making smart plays with it, being physical, winning battles. Noel Acciari kind of drags everyone else into the fight. And one thing that I think is a positive here, as we talked about Zach Aston-Reese and everything he's done, a lot of this started to transition for Aston Reese when Noel Acciari got here. I don't know if this was a meeting of the minds where it's very similar players who can play a similar style, kind of showing the other guy, hey, this is what I do, this is how I play, and then showing, hey, the physicality, winning battles, blocking shots. These are the little things you can bring into your game that make you an impactful player. I think a lot of what we're seeing out of Zach Aston-Reese over the last little while has been inspired by the play of Noel Acciari, and you kind of see that here tonight. He's a reliable, responsible player who can win battles, play heavy, block shots, kill penalties. So I love what I saw from Noel Acciari in his return to this lineup here tonight, and I love kind of how he's impacted that bottom six to show them the proper way to play as a bottom six player. Yes, you're going to have guys in your bottom six who have a little bit more skill. Maybe Kerfoot has a little bit more skill than some of the other guys in that bottom six there. But there's a certain way you have to play when you're in the bottom six. You don't have to completely lose your sense of purpose and the way that you play and your real style of play, your identity. You don't have to lose that, but you do have to adapt, and you have to figure out a way to play with within a role in that bottom six. And I think that Noel Acciari is a guy to help other people come into their own and be impactful players in there. Super chat here from Joe Hill. Thank you, Joe, for the super chat. Joe saying, lots of shots from the boys. Hoping the drought alleviates itself sometime in the next week or so in time for the playoffs. I mean, look, as far as drought goes, I'm not really concerned about any type of drought or anything like that we may be seeing. We see Matthews get an empty netter here. As long as he continues to put pucks in the back of the net, I'm going to be happy with that. I don't care how they come, as long as he continues to play the way we expect him to, play a dominant brand of hockey, which he has been doing. Look at the expected goals here tonight. Matthews leads the entire game in expected goals with 2.04. I talked about how Columbus walked away from this one, okay? Columbus walked away from this one with 2.01 expected goals on the night. And I know expected goals don't mean everything, but they are a telling factor of the process of play. How are things going underlying? Because sometimes when you look at things and you're not getting results, but you're playing with winning the expected goals battle, limiting high danger chances, winning the shots on goal battles, and you can at least walk away and say that, then you can kind of tell that at some point things should turn in your favor. It is very rare that they don't. Well, guess what? In terms of expected goals here tonight, Austin Matthews on his own beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. 2.04 expected goals, and the Columbus Blue Jackets had 2.01 on the night. That is a dominant night from Austin Matthews, and one of my favorite moments here tonight from Austin Matthews himself was the play that he had in the third period when he goes outside wide, toe drags Peak as he goes down on one knee, takes it to the net, and just misses the net on the backhand there. That, to me, is a great sign of Austin Matthews, his confidence, and where his level of play is at here. Because you see a guy driving the net with speed, using his size to take it to the net, and not just looping around the outside, but actually taking it right down to the net. Man, that is the Austin Matthews we are expecting. That is the Austin Matthews who can go into the playoffs and take over a shift, take over a period, take over a game. And if he's able to continue that level of play, I do expect things to continue to trend in the right direction for him. We saw him earlier in the season. He wasn't being dominant. His underlying metrics kind of supported that. You sat here and you said he's not really leading expected goals battles. He's not generating a lot for himself, but over the last little while, he has been, and we've been seeing it from the eye test and from the true statistics that we can walk away from and look at after the fact. Like, Austin Matthews has been very, very, very good over the last little while, and I'm very happy that he was able to get the puck in the back of the net here tonight, even if it was on an empty netter, because I think this is just something for him as he inches closer to 40 goals on the season. He inches closer to 300 career goals. We're going to see him try a little bit more and more and more. And the more he can ramp that up through the rest of the regular season, I think it'll help him a whole lot more to open up playoffs here and become an impact player in the playoffs. Now, in terms of John Tavares, maybe a drought that we're talking about there with Joe's comment, one thing that I kind of think of when you see this is yes, but I think in terms of like him actually scoring at a high rate, yeah, over the last little while, it's not like it's been incredible. It's not like we're being blown away with Tavares' play. One thing that he kind of struggles with a little bit, we heard Keith talk about it. He's trying to get him going at 5-on-5. John Tavares is a player that you can essentially rely on for power play points to kind of go out there and dominate. Go out there and be a guy who can tip pucks in front of the net, bang home rebounds, right time, right place kind of player. He's got enough skill, ability, and hockey IQ to do so. But you do see him in the 5-on-5 game struggle a little bit. A lot of that comes from his skating and his speed. Now, for anybody who's going to sit out there and say, oh yeah, it's because he's getting older, it's deteriorated, I disagree to an extent. I mean, maybe a little bit is creeping into his game, but this John Tavares, what we're seeing right now, his skating, his speed, how it looks like he's got a piano on his back at times, that's how he's always skated. That's how he's always been here with this, with his career. It has been a slower moving game. But right now, kind of one of the things that we're seeing is that his ability to take the puck from one zone to the other is very diminished. It is very hindered. So he's not going to be an effective player in that sense. So when it comes to Tavares and his ability to impact a game that way, he's not really going to have it. He can't lug the puck up the ice like Matthews, Nylander, and Marner can. So I think Keefe is kind of going to insulate him in the way that he can get him around other players who can transition the puck up the ice. I think it's one reason that we saw a lot of positives coming out of Tavares' game when he played with O'Reilly. It's because it was on a slower line, but you had Mitch Marner over there on your wing to be able to pull you up a little bit, take the puck from one zone to the other, and get things going down in the other end. Mitch Marner is able to bridge that gap of D zone to neutral zone to offensive zone, and once you get down into the offensive zone, Tavares is going to be an incredible player. So basically, for me, it is JT offensive zone, JT neutral zone, or defensive zone. The neutral zone is the place where things start to fall off in his game. That's kind of where you see that gap. It's not really going to make itself... It's not going to help you out that much, reality is situation. It's just, it really is going to be one of those ones that's going to stand out to you a ton, and you're going to sit there and say, no, like, we can't do this. It's not going to work for us this way and in this sense. And that's kind of where you're going to need some help from other guys. That's where you're going to need those other players on his line. And I think that that's the reality of his level of play as it is right now. Yes, I'm seeing people asking Gord to call in here. Gord is back in class right now, so Gord likely won't be able to call in. Gord is a weekend caller. That's where we go to on those Friday night games, Saturday night games. Gord is much more likely to call in for those ones than he is a Tuesday night game, especially here in April. So no calls from Gord here tonight. But if anybody else wants to call in, again, I will send the link to the group right now. You can join the group, join the Leafs Digest group, send me a message on there, send a message into the group, and I will send you the link to call into the show here tonight. And if anybody has questions, thoughts, concerns, feelings, whatever it is, you can send a message, and where I'm happy to take some calls here tonight. I'm happy to hear anybody's thoughts, so make sure to call in there. Again, if you do have questions, though, as well, and you don't want to call in, please send them in the chat. I will try to read as many as I can and answer as many questions as possible so that we can kind of dig in to what's going on here tonight with this Leafs game and how we felt about this team's play tonight, despite having played a close scoring game with the Columbus Blue Jackets in this one, game 77. But I am happy that they at least were able to find a way to pull out a win here tonight against Columbus, because having to deal with the response tomorrow after they were minus 400 favorites against the Blue Jackets at home, that would have been a rough one to deal with. About half of you watching right now have not hit that like button, so please make sure to hit the like button before before this show gets any further in, we will get to our play of the game. We will get to our grades of the game. So I will break those down. And again, if anyone has their own thoughts, opinions, feelings that they want to share, please call into the show. But it's a few things that I wrote down that I want to talk about here. Opening the second period was a little bit concerning. I don't know if anybody else had the same feeling as I did, but otherwise, once that second period started, I was a little bit concerned. I mean, we basically looked here at this team coming out very slow. That was a concerning feeling to me because that was a tendency that we've seen of this Leafs team. When you get in games against these bad teams that aren't good, you play down to their level. And a lot of it has to do with your pace of play. The Leafs are a high-flying team, and whether that be a team that's looking to get into a shootout with you or a team that's just going to dominate you offensively, they are that team that picks up the pace and kind of rams it down your throat. Early on in the second period there, the way that they came out, it was just like aggressive speed was not there. They were being caught on back checks. They were being caught taking the puck up the ice. Like, this was truly a situation for me opening that second period that I came into it with concerns. And I sat there and said, is this Leafs team going to resort to old Leaf tendencies? And it looked like it for about a couple of minute stretch there. And then it just started to smooth itself over. We saw a little bit of a ramp up. It wasn't an immediate switch. It was a little bit of a ramp up. And then you got into the regular rhythm of this Leafs team. You started to see them start to generate those shots again. You started to see them come out strong. So for me, maybe this is a little bit of a curse of having played against a lower level team or one of the worst teams in the NHL, a team that you're starting to come out and, you start the second period, you're going to play at their level a little bit to open it. Well, things turned around right away. Within the first 5 minutes there, and they started to say, all right, let's play our game. I don't know if this came from something that was said by the guys on the bench. I don't know if this was said by one of the better players, one of the higher up players, but the reality was things did turn around from where they were at when it was a slow struggle to start the game. So that was a little bit frustrating. To get things going, but that was kind of where I was at there. Look, I don't want to be the frustrated with the refs guy every single night, but how the heck did they miss that hand pass out of the zone? Center ice, right at the blue line, inside the blue line in Columbus's zone, knocks the puck down. JT doesn't play it. He doesn't play it himself, and the Columbus Blue Jackets pick up the puck, go down the ice, rushing down the ice. How are the refs sitting there not seeing that? 4 guys on the ice and not one picks it up? Not one guy on the ice notices what happens? What are we doing? What are the referees doing? That to me was nuts. I don't understand. 4 guys on the ice, not one saw it. I think Toronto can challenge that in that situation. Little bit confused why they didn't. It was very clearly a hand pass. Maybe they just didn't want to deal with the controversy of the rule. Maybe they weren't sure if maybe it nicked the player or it was deemed played. Maybe that was why the refs didn't call it. But reality is that is a bogus non-call by the refs. It obviously doesn't impact the game. It wasn't going to be something that if the Leafs lost, I would have sat here and said that's why. I can honestly tell you that that's the truth here with that. But that is ridiculous. It shows the state of reffing in the NHL right now, how bad things are, and how ridiculous it is that they can't see anything. So absolutely absurd there. But we do have a man on the line here. Guy calling in to give his opinions on the game here tonight, where the Leafs stand. So we will go over to the Queensway Automotive Group hotline. All right. On the phone, the man himself, Joe Hill. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, how are you, Zach?
I'm not bad. I'm happy that the Leafs came out with a win here tonight because this would have been a frustrating one for me. After the fact, I have to sit here and kind of explain what happened, what went wrong, because we all know the Leafs have the tendency to play down to their opponents. They have a tendency to kind of fall into that little trap where all of a sudden you start to get goal lead, and then you kind of start to quit a little bit, quit on your own goaltender. Maybe he lets in a bad one here or there, and things start to fall off a cliff, and we sit here on the post-game show, and I have to say, Joe, what happened? Are we worried about this team? It's April 4th. We've got 5 games left in the regular season. Is it time to hit the panic button? We're losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets in regulation in the regular season. And thank goodness we do not have to do that here tonight, so I feel like I can breathe. We got goalied, but we found our way out of it. So, you know what? I'm feeling all right. I've got a lot of energy right now. I had a busy day with work. I did like 6 different videos today that I was producing and a part of and stuff. So it was a long one, and I was like, oh man, this Leafs game could be a frustrating one tonight. And finally, they find a way to win in these tough home games where you're favored minus 400 against one of the worst teams in the NHL. But that's a long-winded way to tell you, Joe, I feel pretty good right now. I feel okay. Where are you at?
I'm feeling pretty good. I think the only time I was really in doubt was maybe the last, maybe between minute 15 and minute 12 of the third period, where it got really, really close there. The guys, I can't blame them. I think they have their goal in sight, which is the playoffs. They want to be healthy. You don't
Yeah,
need to be slamming into Columbus Blue Jackets guys, taking runs at them and everything else, in order to prove a point or anything else like that. You have an Ontario guy called up from the AHL for Columbus who has like a .895 save average. He's going to stand on his head against Toronto.
yep,
So all in all, I think it was a positive evening. It wasn't really in doubt for me as much as maybe the last few minutes as any hockey game where think anything can happen. So
right,
um, again, that's my long-winded way of saying I'm feeling pretty good. I think the tough part for me is um, I'm a very vocal fan. I'm a very positive fan. Um, it can take its toll when you're dealing with people who are slamming them if they win, you're slamming them if they lose. Every game is a statement game if they lose. Every game is a who cares game if they win.
yeah.
It can take its toll on you for a while. And I don't even get paid for this shit. So I mean it's like one of those things where I guess I need to log off of Twitter for a little bit, I think, before the playoffs. And I think I will do that for a game or two, maybe the Florida games or whatever, or the Rangers game, just so I can get my head about me and try to come into the playoffs with a positive attitude and not have to listen to anybody else, because I can be very easily swayed from a lot of online chatter. I hope the guys are doing that too, because you start to notice things, and then maybe something that's negative that's not going to affect us that much um, becomes this huge mountain in your brain.
Right.
And like, say for instance, like Willie not scoring, or Mitch not scoring, or like Austin not scoring as much in the last few games, but we're seeing guys in the bottom score like Kerfoot and Zach Aston Reese, and that's kind of good, right? Because the top 6 guys are pros, and they're going to turn it on for the playoffs, and they have ways of beating Vasilevsky. If you can get those other guys with confidence, that's a very positive thing. On the
Yeah.
flip side, you're like, well, what if they're going through a drought? And what if it's a mental thing? And what if they're freaked out about the playoffs and it's affecting their play now? And then, then you can just start going down that rabbit hole. So I'm trying to look at that positively as well. So sorry,
Yeah,
that's a
well, I think
long-winded
you're doing a
answer.
pretty good job of it. I think that each time we talk, you're definitely one of the more positive people that we see in the chat, and I have talked to, especially about this Leafs team. I think everyone, for the most part, is pretty much that we have call in actually is mostly on the positive side. I know there's certain situations where we kind of get to after a game where it's going to be frustrating and people let those emotions out, as they should. That's what this channel is here for and this live stream is here for. But I mean, yeah, as we get to the playoffs, the biggest goal for me is getting reps, getting chemistry. And, I understand your points about a little bit of concern about drought here if you go into one of those or if something kind of falls off. But look, as far as things go, if you're the best players in the world, as these guys should be, as they're paid to be, to me, ultimately, it shouldn't matter. The playoffs are one time where it is much different than anything else. And for me, I know like one thing that always happened when I was playing and stuff is game one of the playoffs, your regular season doesn't matter anymore. And even how you played 3 nights before in the final game of the regular season, it's out the window. It is a new level of energy, excitement, anticipation, whatever it is. You get into that spot where you get out there, your first game, let's hope it's at home. I think it will be at this point based on the way the Leafs are playing. But you get out there, game one, and you have that building rocking behind you. There's the anthem going, the crowd is singing the anthem, there's towels being waved around everywhere, Leafs forever, people are getting all fired up. Once that gets going, I think it's just a different type of atmosphere. I still feel like Matthews is going to hit that 40 goal mark this season. So for me, I understand what you're saying. I don't dismiss it. I think there is some truth to it. Like if these guys just go on a freezer and I mean, they don't score for the next 5 games, like I'm gonna be calling. I'm gonna be calling you privately. It's not even gonna be on the phone on the stream here, Joe. I'm gonna be telling you how worried I am. I'm gonna be saying, Joe, you might be doing the Leaf show for me here because I'll have that kind of worry. But yeah, I think as it goes right now, look, Matthews played incredibly tonight. You even look at the expected goals for John Tavares. I know it's a concern, and he didn't score. He was second on the Leafs in expected goals, 1.63 for him tonight. And Keefe said, hey, we're trying to get the guy going at 5-on-5.
And 50-plus shots, I mean, 50-plus shots, you can't complain about that. It's like when they played against Carolina and they lost and they had 40-plus shots on goal, and it's not like the effort isn't there. I think they're coasting, and I think that that's rightfully so. I think any psychological barrier here is going to be the next week and a half we have between now and the playoffs. And I don't want it to cost them. I don't think it will necessarily, but we're all biting our nails. We don't want anybody to go down, against Boston or Montreal or Florida or any of the other
Marner
physical
gets
teams.
stepped on here tonight.
Yeah, Marner got stepped on. I had my head in my hands for 5 minutes. It's just like, oh my God, and Matt Murray going down the other night, and that was a really rough thing to take and watch. And he's day to day, so that's kind of good news for him. I think he'll be back probably next week or so. But it's like one of those things where, so it's as a Leafs fan, if you haven't spent any time underneath a desk hugging your knees rocking back and forth, I don't know if you're really a true fan, because we've all been there. So
okay, Joe, I gotta ask you this because I'm gonna play a little bit of the Debbie Downer here, or the pessimist here, and I'm gonna need you to talk me back the other way out of this one, okay? Or maybe you agree with me here. Now, I just talked about how I think these guys have the ability to kind of, start fresh when you get to the playoffs, and it's a different season. It's a different atmosphere, a different landscape altogether. It is brand new. But what we know of John Tavares and the way that he plays is that primarily his production is going to come on the power play. That's naturally how he's been throughout his time in the NHL, as well as here in Toronto, especially. That is where a lot of his points are going to come from. And there's nothing wrong with getting a lot of points on the power play, but he's not really a guy who drives play at 5-on-5. So when he played with Mitch Marner, we saw him benefit a ton from Mitch Marner's play and the way that he is capable of taking the puck up the ice, the way he's capable of transitioning things and generating and creating opportunities where JT basically doesn't have to worry about the neutral zone. It's get from the D zone to the offensive zone and meet Mitch Marner down there, and then he'll set you up, and then you can score from there. I have a little bit of concern right now with the fact that Sheldon Keefe had to come out and publicly say they're trying to get John Tavares going at 5-on-5, and putting Mitch Marner in there was the little spark plug that they were giving to get him going. And the reason that I have this concern is because whose production from a scoring standpoint, strictly putting the puck in the back of the net, I mean, you look at this guy, Austin Matthews, he was point per game throughout the regular season, but his goals weren't there the way that we saw. Obviously, Nylander was having a career year playing alongside of him, but they said, man, we need to get Matthews scoring. So they put Marner up there to get him going. Well, now all of a sudden you need to get JT going, so you put him back down there. Are you feeling the slight concern there as well in terms of like Marner has to be playing with one of these guys to get them going, and if he's not playing with one of the guys, they might not be able to generate at 5-on-5. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you have that concern as well yourself, or is this a non-issue for you?
Let me ask you a question. Maybe this would help describe what I'm thinking, because I have a few as you're talking. One is, what was one of our biggest problems in the last 2 years in the playoffs as a team? What was one of the biggest shortcomings we had besides goaltending?
Well, ability to outscore opponent, and like the top six really didn't show up.
I'd say depth is a big problem, right?
Okay, yeah.
I think that when you have a playmaker like Mitch Marner, and now a center with Ryan O'Reilly, and a playmaker like Willie or with Austin, I think having the ability to move one of your best playmakers between your top two lines and it generates scoring is not a bad thing. If you take Draisaitl away from McDavid, you have some opportunities to score, but it's not nearly the amount if you drop him down to the second line as with the first. If you take Marner and you drop him down to the second line, he's going to generate plays and they're going to score, period. And if you move him up to the top line, he's going to generate plays and they're going to score. That's his job. That's why he's worth the money that he's worth. So I don't think that I'm necessarily as worried about that as him trying to get I would like, and to your point, I am agreeing with you a little bit, because I would like to see the captain of our team generate enough gumption in his head to go and just like and get in front of the net and start shoving dudes out of the way and start tipping goals in again, right? And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that a little bit more. But again, we're coming to the end of the season. So is he going to risk getting slashed and hit and knocked and cross-checked and all that other stuff when it comes to playing a team like Boston or Tampa, where we're going to kind of expect him to turn it on? I don't know. I think it might be a maintenance thing partly. It's like, let's see if we can get some easy ones here for him and go from there. And that way he's in a good mental spot. He's having some fun before we go into this super tense time of the playoffs. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that would be my line of thinking with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not too okay. So I'm not overly concerned, because I think that this newfound chemistry between Matthews and Yarncroke is a very interesting piece of the puzzle. We saw Bunting playing with Matthews and Nylander, and obviously Nylander was the one having the career year alongside there. Everything looked fine and dandy. We saw.
Let's not forget. Let's not forget the Tavares O'Reilly chemistry either, because that was off the charts as well.
So a few things that I see and I'm noticing here in the chat, and I think some of these pieces can kind of go together. It's interesting to think about. Gordon bringing up Tavares needs Marner, Matthews doesn't. I think he's right. I think Gord is right there in terms of Matthews is still going to be an effective player. And in all honesty, look, I'm not trying to say this to take away from Mitch Marner at all. I truly love his game and appreciate and respect everything that he does and how he helps out other players. I think it was somewhat coincidental of him going on Matthews' line and Matthews starting to have that period of dominance. And the reason that I say that is because over the last couple of games when Matthews hasn't played with Marner, Matthews has still generated a ton of expected goals, a ton of scoring opportunities, a ton of high danger chances created for his line mates, as well as be able to score.
Yeah.
It's not like he's going to score at the same pace as he does with Marner. That's reality. He's not. You're playing with one of the, if not the best playmaker in the NHL, Mitch Marner. He's going to be able to find you in positions that not a lot of other people around the NHL can. But John Tavares does need Mitch Marner alongside him because you sit there with a guy like Nylander. He's not the same driver that Mitch Marner is. He's
Mm.
not the same playmaker. He's an incredible playmaker, but he's not the same playmaker that Mitch Marner is. So
I
Marner
think
can go
he's
on
the,
the Zach Tavares line.
I think Willie is more of an opportunist like Austin is. You know what I mean? He's looking for
Yeah,
that opportunity and is skating through guys and looking for that chance. And so he's not going to be the one who sets things up as much. You know, he
right.
kind of needs to set up himself. So I agree.
So I think there's some interesting stuff there, and I saw Mark Dago put in the chat as well. He wants to see Yarncroke, Matthews, Nylander on the first line. I think that could be interesting, and as well, to go with your point here, Joe, this allows for depth. This allows to push guys down in the lineup. Now you could play Marner, Tavares, O'Reilly, or you could play Marner, Tavares, Bunting, and then
Hmm.
go with Yarncroke, Matthews, Nylander. Now down to your third line, you're gonna have O'Reilly, Kerfoot, etc. And you could go through with different lines like that. So being able to build things out that way, being able to kind of change the depth, change the outlook of your team, I do think that there's some positives there. It is a tiny bit concerning to me because not because of their play, but because of the guy behind the bench. And I'll elaborate quickly, but I think you'll understand. Game one, first period, if Austin Matthews doesn't score and he doesn't maybe generate as many chances, I wouldn't be surprised if Sheldon Keefe says, Mitch, you're on the first line again. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden we are 20 minutes into game one of the playoffs where we're expecting to go for 4 games, or 4 series, excuse me. God, I hope not 4 games. 4 series. And we are in the blender because Sheldon Keefe is panicking that Matthews hasn't scored or generated as many chances as he felt he should have. That's where my concern comes in because now Marner goes to the first line and who knows who goes to the second line, and we are in absolute chaos in game one. And I have concerns about him and his ability to hold strong to a lineup. So hopefully it can be proven wrong. And ultimately, what I would kind of say is that I really, really hope that period number one, we score like 6 goals, and Matthews has 2 of them, Tavares has 2 of them, and O'Reilly has 2 of them. And then
Right.
Keith looks down there and he's just giddy and can't even keep his socks on because he's so excited that all 3 lines have contributed. And then he just says, I'll leave it. I'll leave it. And then we just move on from there. But
Yeah.
knowing Sheldon Keefe, he's the X factor in the lineups that concerns me a little bit.
I think I mean, he did take Tampa to 7 games last year. So, I mean, it's not entirely without hope. He is a linchpin. I agree that if it does break, then that's that, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't know, man. I think we get frustrated with the blender, and then when he does the blender and it works, we're kind of like, oh, that was cool. You know, bringing up Yarncrook up to. There was a lot of moves before Yarncrook was up on the first line with Matthews, and we started seeing that chemistry start to pop, right? So it's difficult because Austin's had a few more than a few guys. Mac Hollowell this year. He's had Mitch playing with him. He's had Bunting. He's had Yarncrook, and so all of them have worked out one way or other. And Austin seems to pick favorites sometimes, and that's his prerogative because he's the man, right? So you want to keep your top guy happy. So I think uh, like I said, I think that the blender is concerning. At the same time, it might work out because I mean, Game 7, that one goal hadn't been called back. You know, we had mixed up a lot of lines in Game
Yeah,
7, and things were going really well for us. So
that's fair.
it's one of those things where, um, yeah, it's scary, and I think part of what we have going on is a lot of fear, and we just don't want that same feeling, and that's going to make you avoid certain thoughts or certain way of thinking because the only thing we see right now is a bunch of fear and the idea of failure again as fans, and that's something we all have to deal with. That's something that all of Leafs fans deal with, and every big team that's had problems, like from the Red Sox to the Mets to the friggin' Cubs. They've all had to deal with that for many, many years, just like we did. So I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair feeling. I think it's a valid feeling. But at the same
Mhm.
time, we have to realize that every year is different than the last. It's not the same as the last year. So it's a new
Yeah.
team, it's a new opportunity, and I think we'll just have to see what happens and maybe just have some fun with it. Especially with the win tonight. I don't want to feel down about a win tonight. I don't.
Yes.
I don't want to feel down about them playing well or going into teams like Boston or Florida or Tampa. God, it's such a rough last week, man. But at the same time, it's supposed to be a lot of fun, and I think they're gonna. I think all the teams are gonna be wary of trying to beat the crap out of each other, except for Boston, because they want to do
Yeah.
well in the playoffs too. So it's kind of like a catch-22.
All right, super chat here. You got to get to super chat from our guy Michael, all the way out in Hong Kong there. And Michael, I told you don't worry about sending me the bottle of champagne. I'm holding true to that. I don't need you to send me that. I appreciate the gesture, but don't think I forgot that you were the man who said the Leafs were missing the playoffs this year. So, yeah, I remember that. And you said you'd send one if they did make the playoffs. So, as we are 5 games from the playoffs and they're second in the Atlantic Division, don't think I forgot. I appreciate the super chat, but don't think I forgot. Michael saying, general feeling compared to last season, most fans have a higher confidence level that the Leafs will beat the Lightning this year. Can't imagine if they lost again. Michael, I appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. I like to talk about all the things I get sent in as super chats and stuff. This is one I am going to thank you for the super chat, and I'm going to move on from. I will read it again for your sake because I appreciate that you did send the super chat and you sent this. But Joe, you know what? Positive vibes only. I think you and I can both agree. After I read this, we will move on because we're not going to imagine what happens if they lose in the first round because we're not going to need to because they're going to win in the first round. So for Michael's sake, I'll read it again here. But he says, general feeling compared to last season, most fans have a higher confidence level. The Leafs will beat the Lightning this year. Can't imagine if they lost again. Michael, thank you for the super chat. I'm moving on now. Positive vibes only.
Positive
Positive vibes
vibes.
only. A 6 1/3 here saying Michael, Michael, Michael. Yes, Michael, Michael, Michael. All right, Joe. I think I agree with you here in terms of it is a different team, it is a different lineup. We are looking at different stuff, so not overly concerned there. But I do have some concerns regarding Sheldon Keefe. I know they go to 7 last year, but I still think, and chat's kind of saying here like. Mark Daigel was saying like, oh, I don't think people give Keefe enough credit for it. Like, I think he gets enough credit, but I think there's a level of stubbornness that comes with coaches where they have to have, like a coach can't be timid behind the bench when he's coaching players. Yes, you can be a player's coach and you can be a nice guy and you can do all these things, but you have to have confidence in yourself and the decisions that you're making. Otherwise, you're not going to be an NHL coach. But I think sometimes some of that can lead to stubbornness. And the reality of the situation is that I think sometimes he gets a little in his head a little bit too much and just overthinks it and says like, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. Like I'm going to switch these up because this will work." And that's my concern with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
ultimately I don't think that's we have to like panic over it, but I'm just going to be honest that is kind of where I'm at. Now, 6 1/3 saying here, Joe, and he's kind of asking both of us, Zach and Joe, is AM34 difficult to match up? Now, 6 1/3, if you want to elaborate on specifically what you were thinking about or asking in that question, because I think there's two ways to go about this. So, Joe, I'll ask you the first one. Is AM34 hard to match up against, I guess, is maybe one way to look at it. The other way I thought he might be asking is match up with players on the team, like on the Leafs team. But I don't know which way you want to attack this one. Is AM34 hard to match up?
I think so. I think he's very difficult to match up against defense because of the way he plays. He doesn't stay in one spot. He circles like a shark, and he looks for
Yeah.
those opportunities. He's not standing there with a stick in the air waiting for a shot. He's very rarely going to do that. He drives the net very well. Um, So yeah, he's havoc for any defenseman who goes up against him, I think.
Oh, here you go.
Um,
6 and a third clarified to play with teammate wise.
teammate wise. And I'm going to say no again. I think that he is very versatile in what he does. We saw even on a lower producing year this year when he was playing more defensively and he was hurt. He was doing a lot of, he was still doing a lot of assists. He was still waiting for
Mhm.
opportunities. He was still giving opportunities, which is why all those guys, Matt Hollowell and Jan Crook and all those guys started to up their game. They're starting to
Yeah.
up it, and I think um, he is he's a great leader. I mean, I can't really. I think the guys look up to him. I think the guys want to play with him. I think the guys want to play well for him. And I
Yeah.
think there's not much more that you can say about a guy than that, especially a top scoring guy. He's not willing to take a back seat. He's going to push other guys to do well, and he does that. So I think that's good.
I agree. I think that he's not hard to match up with teammate wise. I think that when you look around at some of the guys on this team, there are players that might be a little bit more difficult to match up with. No disrespect to him, but John Tavares, I think, is slightly more difficult to match up with. And part of the reason I say that, and it's, again, not a knock on him, it's more just because you have to consider level of speed and pace of play when you're playing with a guy with, pairing a guy with John Tavares. How are they going to be able to fit in that way? Okay, now you find a guy who can fit in speed wise. Can that guy drive a line? Because you need a guy to be able to carry pucks through the neutral zone, transition pucks up the ice. So I think that there's some chemistry things that you have to look to from that perspective, but I wouldn't say like he's a problem. I think he's just a little bit more difficult to match up with. Now, there are two guys. I know that if Gord was here right now, he like listening because I think he's getting ready for class. Yeah, he would probably be pretty frustrated. I think he's probably just in the chat, so maybe someone is going to tell him, I'm sorry, Gord, but Justin Hall, I think, is very difficult to match up with. We see here tonight that he gets caught in a position where, as I've said numerous times, I don't agree with Gord that he has good gap control. I think it's something that he actually struggles with. He's not the fastest skater. He's not the most agile. He struggles with pivoting and turning, and he got burned on that play there tonight. By what was his name, Robinson, on
Yeah.
Columbus, as he drives down the outside and basically just burns Hall because he can't. You need to find a very specific type of player to play with him who's going to be overly defensively aware when he's on the ice. The other guy
If
without,
they get past Hall, it's over, man. It is,
yeah,
so
yeah, and then
but
the other
whether
guy
he's on
that's
the
hard to match
doorstep,
up with is Morgan Riley,
yeah.
and we all know why.
Hmm.
And the really simple answer to this, Joe, is basically you and I have talked about. I've talked about it with Rob, talked about it with Gord. Like everyone essentially has agreed who's called in here and had opinions on this. But Morgan Riley is extremely hard to match up with because he needs someone whose game is defense and defense only. That's what Ron Hainsey
Hmm.
was. He was a slow player who only played defense, and he worked well. All of a sudden, Morgan Riley plays limited minutes with Luke Shen, who plays defense only, and his game starts to calm down. And it's the first time all season we've seen that out of him. But you roll over to playing with TJ Brody, he brings Brody's metrics down. Plays with Hall, it is a complete and utter gong show to the point where, like, I think my temperature had been the highest it ever was doing a post game show when I saw like 6 games in a row Riley and Hall playing together. It was like, this can't happen. He can't play with Gio because of offside. He couldn't play with Sandin because of offside. He can't play with Liljegren because he's not mature enough or responsible enough to play alongside Liljegren. Like, that's guy that's hard to put on a line with. Marner, Matthews, those guys to me, not at all hard to match up with teammate wise.
I think that's the reason why you saw the trades that were made for defense that we made. Somebody like a McCabe or somebody like a Shen or something like that, who can be paired up with, if necessary, Hall or Riley or somebody like that in order to bring out their games a little bit more, or be able to take care of the oh shit factor of if somebody gets past them. You know what I mean? Or also be able to take the power play away if necessary, like with Gustafson or something, for him to QB a power play. I still think the theory still stands that Gustafson was going to be part of another trade that didn't go through, and that's that. But oh well, here we are. So,
Yeah.
but I think what we ended up with though is okay. So I'm not I'm not apoplectic about in any stretch of the mean, at all about who we pair with Hall or with Riley. But
Yeah.
it is frustrating to think that we are paying a lot of money for Riley, and I don't know. I need to know. I need to know what the plans are for that guy, because I really want him to do well, and I really want him to work out for the team because I think he is. In years past, he's been the best part of the team that we've had, but for some reason this year he seems to have really fallen off, and I hope that's not a trend. And maybe it's just getting married jitters or something like that for him, but I just hope it gets better. That's all. So
Okay, super chat here. It's a good transition for us to move to a new topic, and then after this, I think Joe will get into play of the game and we'll get into grades. Um, First and foremost, super chat from Maxentius Decimus. Max, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated as always. But
Max.
yes, Max saying here, uh, Wall follows the puck well and doesn't lose his net. I would agree with this. I think he looks calm. He looks comfortable in the net. He doesn't look like a guy who is a young kid who is stepping in and playing his first games in the NHL. He looks like he's at least been around and backed up before and played in a bunch of practices, which maybe he has in terms of being in practices and stuff. We've seen him in few games with the Leafs in terms of even backing up, but he just looks comfortable. He looks like he's in the right place. He feels comfortable being here. Where do you kind of slot in on Wall? And I mean, as it stands right now, 5 games from the playoffs, Murray gets what looks like to be another concussion here. They said a head injury, but they didn't dig too much deeper into it from that. Where do you kind of sit here and look at with Joseph Wall, his level of play, and where are you at for confidence-wise with Joseph Wall if he is the backup goaltender going into the playoffs?
I'd like to see him play against Boston. We can afford a loss, and I'd like to see him go up against a bigger team than just Columbus. That's part of what we've done over the last couple of years is play Wall against teams like Buffalo, against Columbus, against Montreal, and teams that are a little bit weaker. I don't want to say get into the deep end, but he is very good from what I've seen. And as a former goalie, I love his game. I love the confidence that he has. I love that we have him on a sweetheart deal. I like that his game has I each year his game has gotten better in the AHL, and he has thoroughly proved that this year on the Marlies.
Yep.
It's just a good progression. I like Shelgren too. And but I think I'm not saying Shelley has plateaued by any stretch of the means, but Wall is younger and has put up better numbers this year. So I think it's his to lose. People are like, move on from Matt Murray, all this other stuff like that. They're not going to move on from Matt Murray, guys. If he is healthy for the playoffs, he will play. And that's all there is to it. I think they're being cautious because of previous concussions, but it's not like he's a terrible backup. He is a solid backup. That's all there is to it. And Wall hasn't been there before, and Murray has. So if it comes down to those two, I'm going to pick Murray. But I really, like I said, I'd like to see Wall go up against teams like Florida, like Tampa, like a Boston. I want to see how, or New York Rangers. I want to see how he does in those scenarios, and then he can learn from that. The only way he's going to get better is if he learns and goes up against even bigger challenges, and that's a big challenge. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at this guy and just kind of where he's at as a backup, a potential backup, I feel much more comfortable with him than where we were at with Chalgren last year. If he was
Yeah.
the guy to have to step in, like I like Chalgren, I thought he was okay, but I feel way, way, way better about Wall's game right now and his ability to step into this lineup if he really has to. So I like what we're seeing from Wall. I think he'll be a guy that can step in as the third goalie and the backup if Murray stays out. But reality for me is like I feel comfortable with him being around, and I do think he'll be here on this team next year in much more of a capacity than the third goaltending position. So yeah, you know what? I'm happy with Wall. I'm happy with his game here tonight, even in a game where he faces lower level shots in terms of high quality. He did face a few. He faced a few decent chances. He finishes with 24 saves and a 923 save percentage. Like, you
Hey,
go with your
yeah,
backup goaltender and they walk away with a 923. I'm happy with that. I
it's
feel
a good
pretty
night.
comfortable with that.
It's a good night, And
Yeah.
I'm seeing some people saying Murray isn't a solid backup. He's let in 4 goals. Okay, fine. He's let in 4 goals. I think seven of the last I think 4 of the last 7, something to that effect. But you're ignoring the shootout win where we went round for round for round for round, and he held those that would have been let in by any lesser goalie. I still point to the shutout against Dallas when he was, when he faced down 48 shots, I believe, and saved every single one of them. That's a quality goalie, guys. That is not something that is easy to find, and you can disagree all you want to, or you can say 4 goals let in. Well, it's not always on the goalie. Sometimes stuff happens. I know a couple of those 4 goal games. A couple went off McCabe, one went off Hall. There's a lot of intangibles that you're ignoring here, and yeah, I'm not going to necessarily like wave the Matt Murray flag like I was at the beginning of the season, but when he somebody on Twitter the other day and I were discussing, him and Peter Mrazek, and he was like, well, he has the same numbers as Mrazek does with wins and losses. And then I looked at it, and Murray has a higher save percentage with 260 more shots on goal than Mrazek did, not to mention the types of opponents he was playing. And he has a higher save percentage. So I think that a lot of people might ignore who we're playing against, who he's playing against, if it's on the road, if it's at home. There's a lot of intangibles there that need to be factored in. And a lot of people aren't looking at those. So yeah, he is a solid backup, especially when it comes to the level of play that is expected of him in the playoffs. He's been there and he's been a solid backup before. He hasn't necessarily had the opportunity in the last few years to prove that because of injury or because of the team he's playing for. So now, would I be completely apoplectic if it was Sammy and Wall? No, I think those are both good goalies. And I think Sammy is obviously our starting goalie. But I just, this whole narrative of, well, Murray's bad. I just don't see that, guys. Sorry. You can call me up, you call me petulant, you call me stubborn, whatever. Fine. But I know goalies, and I know them really well, and I watch a lot of them. I know some of them in the minors. I know some that have gone all the way to the show. He has it. He does. And for a big guy with a calm presence who has a good game, I'm his glove hand's slow, but man, I really like him in high stress, high shot games. That's all there is to it. So especially on the road.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just have concerns with him more from a Freddie Anderson type of perspective. We weren't doing live shows yet when Freddie was still here at the team, so people didn't really get to see me have those kind of moments with it. Where Josh and I, it was something we talked about a lot. It was at the very beginning of the Leafs Digest channel, but Freddie Anderson gave me the vibe of like, you can always count on him to let in the bad goal. And look, I mean, Joe, like I agree for the most part with what you're saying in regards to Murray and his play and his level of play and his ability to be a great goaltender. Just more recently, it's been
I think that's
I
think
think it's
that's
just been
fair.
that
I
like
think that's
backbreaker goal, right? Like every now and then it's like that one goal where it's like that's the goal that shouldn't have happened. Freddie was the guy who in game 6, game 7, you're up a goal, maybe you're tied, it's late in the game, and he lets in the goal from the goal line that goes and hits him in the ass and goes in. I just think Murray has the ability to kind of get out of position and scramble a little bit and then maybe allow that bad goal or get himself a little bit flustered in a moment and allow that one bad goal. I think that that's something he has in him that I kind of look at and say, he's a good goalie. He's got it, but
I think that's fair. I mean,
yeah.
there was one that was recent where it was like tipped up really high and it just came down and landed right behind him and he didn't see it, and it was literally like one of those. I don't know if it was against Ottawa or Carolina, but it was tipped up and went way over his head and landed behind him and trickled in. It's one of those weird ones. But remember when Jack would go up, it would be a one-on-one against Jack, and we'd just be like, that's going in, right?
Yeah.
Or if it was going like if it was a one-on-one against Freddie, that's going in. I admit I cover my face and look between my fingers when it goes, one-on-one against Murray, but a little bit, but much less to a degree than those two. So, but I understand what you mean when it comes to like 2 minutes left in the third. is something going to happen? I'd much rather have Sammy in net. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about Wall having enough experience in that scenario or not to trust him in that situation.
Yep.
So maybe I'm repeating myself too much,
No, I
but
understand
yeah.
what you're saying, but I gotta say, even if this is in disagreement with you, this comment is pretty funny. Omer Austin here says Murray is a solid e-bug. It gave me a little bit of a chuckle reading that, so I'm not gonna lie. All right, Joe, I'm going to have you here for this. We'll get wrapped up here on the show, essentially. But as everybody who watches the chat or watches the show knows, first and foremost, you're one like away from smelling salts. I only have 49 there. So if you hit that 50, I mean, we all know what happens. But moving forward, we got the grades of the game as well as our Awesome Matthews
Oh,
play of
I
the
see
day.
50. I see 50. I see 50. Is it 50?
Maybe my end is a little slow here. We're showing 49. All right. So before we get into that, Joe, I'll take your word for it. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. I'll do it.
Make it 51, guys, so it's obvious.
It's not showing up for me here, Joe. I'm not gonna. Oh, there you
I
go. Okay.
see. Make a liar out of me.
All right.
Woo!
All right.
And Omer, I appreciate the disagreement there. Much respect to you, and that is pretty funny. Back up to a backup as an e-bug, but you and I might disagree. But I appreciate the support, and I appreciate your thoughts there. So,
Okay. 2 segments left. Awesome Matthews play of the day. Let's get into it.
let's do it.
All right. Awesome Matthews play of the game. Joe, take it away for us. Start us off here. What is your Awesome Matthews play of the game?
My man Kerfoot scoring again. I love seeing bottom 6 guys score. It just makes me happy. I know Zach Aston Reese. I know Zach Aston Reese is too. Were huge for us, but seeing Kerfoot score another one, that made me really happy. I want to see his confidence get up because he's been doing really good with skating and with steals lately and stuff like that. So I want to see him become that Swiss Army player again, Swiss Army knife player before the playoffs. So
I like it. I think that he's kind of getting rolling at the right time here. He's obviously a guy who's not going to score every game. We're not looking at him to score every other game like maybe Matthews, Nylander, Marner. Those guys are top performers. But you know what? Get him to score every 6th game, every 7th game. And I'm happy every 5, 6, 7 games. This guy pots one in there. Hey, look, he went through that massive stretch where he was not able to score, wasn't getting things done, wasn't creating offensively, wasn't finishing on anything at all. Basically looked like this guy had no confidence, no hands. He gets the shootout winner against Ottawa, and it's a switch flipped in his head. He starts to get rolling, starts to get himself into a position where he can capitalize on offensive opportunities, and to see him start to get that underneath him as he gets to the playoffs. I mean, look, I'm going to remind people here, I'm going to be told I'm an idiot, and I understand, and people are going to say this, and this is one I completely understand, but yes, he made some really bad mistakes last year, 2 of them, that stood out more than anything we could ever imagine with the drop pass and the high stick. 100%. 100%. He did. But he was one of the most impactful players for the Leafs last year in the playoffs consistently, I will say. He's not going to make as big of an impact like your Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, etc. But you know what he was doing last year in the playoffs? Consistently was a guy who drove in deep, got in on the forecheck, was fast, created opportunities. Like, he did a lot of stuff from that standpoint that was like, you know what? You are an effective player in the playoffs. So right now, where I'm looking at this, where he's at in terms of generating opportunities and being a part of the offense and maybe building some chemistry, getting close to playoff time here, I think he could be picking things up at the right time. He's not going to go in there and score 7 goals in 7 games. Like, this reality is not going to happen. He might come away from it with 3-4 points, and that's fine. And I think that that's a good thing for Kerfoot and a good time for him to get going here. So,
Hey man,
yes, I think that that's
people
good.
can call me an idiot too, when it comes to the high stick in game 7 and all that. I get it. But you know what? If Jack hadn't shit the bed in game 4, we would have been having a different conversation as well. You know what I mean? If he didn't have this absolute mental breakdown and let in, what was it, 4 in one period or something to that effect, and we had to call in Shelgren, we would have it would have been a different story. So
Yeah.
let's just be fair on that. I hate blaming one player because it is a team thing. I know that sounds cliche, but dadgummit, I mean, we can take a look at a few that stand out. Hell, I mean, Galchenyuk's flub in Game 7, with or Game 6 against Montreal. A
Yeah.
completely different story as well. So anyway, so yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted your thought there, and I apologize, but
No, that's all good. That was all I had to say about Kerfoot to close that one out. But my play of the game is going to go to the second Aston Reese goal. No, was the finish beautiful? No, it was not. But you know what it was? It was the result of a hard play, a hustle shift from that, I don't know what you want to call them, the fourth line here tonight. Like the way that they were able to win battles, put pressure on the other team, win cycle games, dominate down low. I know that we're looking at a game against Columbus. I understand that. But nonetheless, you can only face who you are put up against. And for them to have that type of dominant game from a physical standpoint where you're not blowing guys through the glass, as something I always refer to is like, you don't have to smash guys' heads in, but you have to separate the man from the puck. You have to make them feel your presence. And for me, I think that line did that tonight. Looking at
yeah,
that goal specifically, Kampf chases the puck down, hustles more than anyone else, wins the battle, gets an opportunity to score, and ultimately it results in the Leafs being able to put the puck in the back of the net, and it comes off of, yes, a shot from the point. Yes, I said, yeah, you heard that right. A shot from the point that goes towards the net. Zach Reese is battling in front, hits him. Not pretty at all. Deflects in. But it's just a result of playing hockey the right way, doing the right things, doing the little things, getting in deep, winning battles, cycling. Like, that was just a perfect display of, hey, here's what you have to do in order to be successful as a third, fourth line. So to me, you know what? That's going to be my play of the game. I just think from an all-around hockey perspective, it's not the prettiest one, but that's play of the game. I'm going to give an honorable mention here, too, real quick. The Matthews toe drag around peak as he went down on one knee. He takes
yeah,
it to the net, drives the net.
it's
Like, I
beautiful.
mean, look, first and foremost, driving the net like that, using your size, your speed, your hands, to get there, like, that's perfect. That's what you want to see from him. The toe drag that he had was beautiful as well. Like, just the whole thing was beautiful. Obviously, if he scored, I probably would sit here and say that's my play of the game, but honorable mention right now. Super Sim here saying Marner getting skate stomped on the leg and getting right back up. That was his honorable mention. So, all right,
Can
there you
I
go.
can I ask a quick question and not to mess up the flow of the show? I
Yeah,
just
go for
something
it.
I wanted to talk to you real quick about. Um, Robert Smith and I were talking before the show started, and we were talking about O'Reilly coming back
Yeah,
because he's in a full contact jersey again in practice this morning.
yeah.
I am comfortable with him coming back against New York, maybe Tampa. I want to see him sit for another week, but I don't want him up against Florida. I don't want him going up against Boston and risking getting a slap on the hand or on that finger. What are your thoughts about him coming back? Come back now? Come back later? What would you think?
Uh, hmm. I'm looking at like the spread of the schedule. Okay, I would disagree with another week, but I don't mind him sitting out against Boston.
Yeah,
Uh, the reason why, which is unfortunate that it's the reality, but it is, Boston is just a bunch of scumbags. Like, come on.
they are.
Like,
They slash at the hand all night long. You know they would.
yeah.
You know they would.
So it's something that we know that they would target. They know that he has that. They're going to play hard. They're going to finish every check on him. They do that naturally anyways. Like, that's the way that they play. They're going to play gritty. They toe the line. At, like, basically 100% of their team toes the line. Yeah, it could be one of those ones where it's like, yeah, they're going to go out and attack. I don't know if that's the right way to describe them, but scumbags is the word I'm going to use to describe them. Like, I kind of
I
think
think
that's what
that's
they are.
accurate. I think that's accurate. Yeah. They know how to play.
Yes.
They know how to play the game to the point where they're not going to get called for shit. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all there is to it. So,
So I wouldn't mind just bringing him back Saturday. It's one extra game. He's already missed a bunch of time, but I wouldn't really want to leave this down to 3 games, 2 games left. Give him the 4. Try to get him in here with some other guys. The only thing that I would say is, like, O'Reilly is a tough SOB. If he says, I want to play this game against Boston, you put him in.
you put
If
him
he's
in. Yeah.
sitting there and he's kind of like, okay, whatever you guys think is best for me, and we'll discuss this together. If there's any hint of that at all, sit him till Saturday, play against Montreal Saturday night, let it be there. Otherwise, yeah, like, I think that that's where you leave it, but it's really a discussion between them. And I mean, I know that's like a cop out answer of where it is, but like, if it's me in there, I'm going to
Yeah.
him and I'm asking him how he feels. If
I'm
his
hoping they can
response to
put some
me
sort
is,
of like, I'm hoping they can put some sort of flexible splint on the finger. So if he does get knocked or if he does get
yeah,
hit, it's
it's
padded
like
or
a
something
protective
like that.
layer. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, something
Yeah.
extra. So,
No, I
but
mean,
yeah,
look, I
I don't think it's
understand
a,
it,
I
but
don't think it's a cop out answer at all. I don't know how I feel about it. Part of me is just like, no, and then the other part of me is like, well, you know, I mean, if he wants to, you might as well
yeah.
play him first, play him for 8 or 9 minutes. He doesn't have to play 23 or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my thought. So
Yeah. So this is how I would do it if I was in the room. I ask him how he's feeling. If his response to me is, I want to play against Boston, and doctors say he's healed, he's good to go, I'm putting him in. If his response is, where are we at? What are your guys' thoughts? As soon as that happens, we're playing Saturday. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with it, because it's just, if he's like dying to get into that game, let the dog out of the cage. If he is sitting there like, okay, yeah, I understand if we're gonna have to protect things, push it off to Saturday, and that's just where it is. Because if he's chomping at the bit to get in, then yeah, put him in. But that's kind
I'm
of where
getting
I
the
go with
feeling
that.
that I'm getting the feeling he's not chomping at the bit. I think he's wanting to. I think he wants to play in the playoffs. I think he wants to make an impact. I think
Yeah.
he knows that these games don't matter. They really don't. And what's the risk, right? Why risk it? So I think if he's a smart dude, and he is, I think that's the feeling I'm getting from what I've been seeing on Twitter and insiders are saying and stuff like that. But who knows? We'll see. I just hope
Um.
it doesn't turn into like a referendum, like get the bum out of here. He doesn't want to play,
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Okay. I saw some other comment, took me away from where I was at, but honorable mention as well. Omer Allison here saying, "Hey Zach, let's have a toast for the women. They start the World Championship in Brampton tomorrow. Go Canada,
hey,
go! Canada's women's team is dope. Shout out to Canada's women's team. A toast to them, Omer. Good reminder there. They do start tomorrow in Brampton. If anyone's in the GTA area and you want to see Canada's women's team, make sure to head on out to Brampton and check that out. I'll give that a plug. It is very, very deserving. That women's team is very good, and at the national level, it is exceptional hockey. It is very fun to watch. So, yes, we'll give them a shout out there. It is deserved. But Joe, final thing. You've been on this whole time. Might as well have you in here to close this one out. Grades of the game.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
I keep having this thing. When I go to play it, it just doesn't go right away. It like hitches and then it plays. And so I don't know what it is with that, but we just sit here blankly staring at the screen, waiting for it to play until it finally goes. So I'll
it's
try to
great.
figure that out.
It's great radio. It's always fun.
Yes. Yes. All right. Joe, going to you first. Grade of the game. Where are you at?
um, I would have liked one of those two not to go in. Um, So I think because of that, I'm going to give it an A minus. I mean, the boys had over 50 shots. It was a solid win. We out skated and outshot them. Um, the hand pass wasn't really on them. I think the guy carried it for like 3 or 4 strides before they could pick him up. So yeah, I'm going to give it A minus. I think I'm pretty happy with that.
I'm copying you here on the B minus. I think it's an appropriate grade. This could have been and probably should have been like a 8-0 or 8-1, 8-2, 8 like whatever kind of game. I think Wall is gonna want those goals back. I mean, the first one, he just catches an edge moving across. There's nothing he can do there differently other than don't catch an edge, but it happens time to time. It happens, so I don't blame him for that one at all. I think he's going to want it back in terms of I wish I didn't fall over, but it's not I wish I would have played it differently. So it is what it is. You move on from that one. The second one I think he would want back more from a positioning standpoint. It beats him short side high, and it's just a tighter game. So I'm going A minus. Yeah, I'm going A minus on this one. Like, you roll in here, you put up 49 shots tonight. I'm pulling up team stats to look at here. You go 56% on the face off. You want to talk about, okay, yeah, they got hit. Yeah, they did get out hit. But you put up 27 hits tonight. Like, think about Leafs teams in years past. We're going to sit here and we're going to be like, oh, like they got blown out of the water in hits. Well, yeah, they probably would have had like 12 hits by the end of the night. Tonight you have 27. And again, as I kind of say here, flow of game is going to dictate shots as well as hits. Well, the Leafs had the puck for a majority of the game, so that's why Columbus is going to walk away from this one with 40. Now, power play goes 0 for 3. Yet again, concerns there. I'm not even going to get into it. I don't even want to touch that at all.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about it.
18 block shots for this Leafs team tonight. Says 13 giveaways. That's not great. You want to clean that up, especially against a Columbus team, but it's probably part of the reason that they were able to hang in. I think that second period started slow, started sloppy. I kind of had concerns coming out of there. I talked about that as you were getting on the show to call in here. But you know what? I'm happy with them coming away with a win. Matthews gets on the board. You get some goals from Zach Aston-Reese. This is a guy who's fighting for a spot into this lineup, and I think he's showing he deserves it right now. And then on top of that, Kerfoot, as you said, that feel-good moment. All right, Kerfoot gets it. Let's move forward. Joseph Woll, a .923 save percentage tonight. Shout out Joseph Woll for just stepping in here in a tough position. .923, 24 saves. You could have got goalied. You didn't let it happen. And he might have to be the guy to back up Samsonov moving forward. So A- for me. I'm fine with that. I think it's probably a little bit of a generous grade, but, I'm comfortable giving that out. So that's kind of where I stand tonight.
I was between B plus and A minus, and I was just like, be positive. Let's just go for it. So
yeah. Adam Bailey here saying, how can you grade this team well after that sad effort? Our fourth line won the game.
Because our fourth line won the game.
But I don't see it that way either. Let's look at the game here tonight. Marner, 6 shots on goal. Matthews, 6 shots on goal. Tavares, 7 shots on goal. Nylander, 3 shots on goal. Yeah, Matthews had a goal, and the other guys didn't have any points, but they created opportunities. They generated a ton. You look at Riley even here tonight, 9 shots on goal. Then I think it was a
96. I think it was a 96% on the deserved to win meter. I don't think I've seen that in a while.
I'm also looking at that. Like, let's look at the deserve to win a meter. Pull it up here again. Yeah, okay, 90. It's at like 95.7%. Then pull up the expected goals, 6.73 to Columbus's 2. Then look at the individual players where you sit here and you say, oh yeah, our top guys didn't show up. Our fourth line won. Well, okay, here we go. Leading expected goals players on Toronto tonight. Need I remind you, Columbus expected goals on the night 2.01. Matthews, 2.04. He himself had more expected goals than the entire Columbus team combined. John Tavares, 1.63. Michael Bunting, third with 0.59. Nylander, fourth, 0.46. Marner, fifth, 0.44. Like, those are all the big boys. They didn't fail me eye test wise here tonight. The only one who's a little bit concerning is JT. It's just his puck movement through the neutral zone. And then looking at but you look at also this expected goals share, where you're looking at expected goals versus goals against. I know these are a lot of just deep random numbers I'm throwing at you, but John Tavares, 89.54% in the expected goal share. Meaning, his line was 89.54% offensive, creating offensive opportunities when they were on the ice. Marner, 86.66. Matthews, 79.69. These guys, when they were on the ice, the big boys who you say didn't show up, they just didn't find ways to score tonight. But I think the kid in net for Columbus was incredible. So I don't really think that's that fair of an argument tonight. I was fine with where the top 3-6 guys were. I don't.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the, is it a measuring stick game? Well, we won, so it's not a measuring stick game. But for some who are serious hockey watchers, hey man, I'd like for us to beat Columbus 8-0 every time we go up against them, especially if they're tanking, for Connor. But at the same time, sometimes they put up a fight. This goalie put up a good fight. He did well. I mean, for an AHL guy getting called up, he did great. So, I mean, guys, I get it, and maybe it is too generous of a grade, but at the same time, a win's a win. And one of the goals from them was basically cheating. So, and they were laughing about it on the bench too. So,
they asked Mike Johnson if it was a hand pass, and he said yes, and then they said to keep it quiet. Mike Johnson was talking about that on the broadcast.
Yeah, so I mean, guys, take the win. Let's just take the win, move on, and go from there, especially at this time of year. So,
well, and Adam saying tonight's team gets smoked by Tampa. I disagree, and also tonight's team isn't going to be the lineup in Game 1 because Joseph Woll isn't going to be in net. Luke Schen's going to be in your lineup. Timothy Liljegren is not. Ryan O'Reilly's going to be in your lineup. You're going to have a more set lineup that we're going to see. We're going to have more depth coming here. And guess what? Matthew Nyes plays in the NCAA semifinals and finals this weekend. He could be with the Leafs next weekend, so we could have even more of a different lineup. Oh my God, come then. So, I disagree, and I think that it's a little bit ridiculous because this lineup is not going to be what it is in Game 1. So that's reality of it. But Joe, I appreciate you calling in here. I appreciate you taking the time as always. Is there anything else you want to say before you get out of here?
You know what? I had something, but I think we covered it. It might have been about ROR. So thanks again for the opportunity, guys in the chat. Whether we agree or disagree, I'm glad you're all here. And let's just have another good couple of weeks. Let's just keep our fingers crossed for all healthy games here, and keep positive and not freak out before we need to freak out. Let's just do that. So have some fun.
All right, Joe, thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it as always. You enjoy the rest of your nights, and I hope I'll see you on Thursday when I do the live watch along, the commentary of the game. So it's going to be a long one. It'll be an interesting one, and hopefully it'll be a fun one, but hopefully I see you there, Joe. You can mute the guys on your TV and put me on in the background.
I will definitely give it a go.
All right, thank you, Joe. I'll see you on Thursday then.
Peace.
All right, there you go. Calling in here tonight on the Queensway Automotive Group hotline. Thank you to our guy Joe Hill for calling in here tonight. Very much appreciated as always. To everyone in the chat who called in here tonight, who participated in the chat here tonight, who gave their thoughts, their opinions, like the stream, subscribe to the stream. Appreciate you guys very much. Obviously, we are on the road to 5,000 subscribers. We got a long way to go. Nonetheless, we are still making a push to get there. I set the goals, and I push to get there as well. If you guys do want more emojis in the chat, you can see the ones that you have access to right now. If you want different ones if you want more added, make sure to join as a channel member. Share this around. Tell people it is time to join as a Leafs Digest channel member so you get access to all of these emojis here in the chat. But fire it on over there. Join as a channel member. It is appreciated, and you can get access to those specific emojis, especially as we get closer to the playoff time. But I can't add more until we get more channel members. That's the reality of the situation. But Leafs fans, thank you guys so much for tuning in here tonight. As I mentioned, I will be back here Thursday doing a watch along for the Bruins game. So if you dislike the Sportsnet broadcast as much as a lot of other people that I see online, you can mute them Thursday night and you can watch me watch the game. Just turn on the game on your TV, pull me up on your phone, on your laptop on the side, and play the audio. You can participate in the chat. If anyone out there wants to call into the show while we're watching the game, feel free. I will put the scoreboard on the screen for us. I can't put the game itself, but the scoreboard, the chat, it'll all be there. Leafs fans, thank you guys so much for tuning in here tonight. This has been Game 77 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, defeating the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-2, moving to 46, 21, and 10 on the season. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Make sure to subscribe, like on the channel. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Keep believing. Believe in.